This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. St. Louis voters went to the polls yesterday in a primary election to select final candidates who will advance to the April 8th general election for mayor, comptroller, and 2 aldermanic seats. We talked Monday about the likelihood of a head-to-head rematch between current Mayor Tishaura Jones and Alderwoman Cara Spencer, and speaking with us was Rachel Lippmann, STLPR's city politics, public safety, and courts reporter. So, Rachel, about that matchup, what did the numbers indicate about who's going to go ahead into the April 8th election?
It was not necessarily a surprise as to who is moving ahead. The 2025 mayoral race will be a rematch of the 2021 race between Tishaura Jones and Cara Spencer. But this time, Cara Spencer more than doubled up Tishaura Jones in the primary. About 24,000 people said that they supported Cara Spencer, and about 11,500 people said they supported Jones. And to me, that's an indicator that there is more enthusiasm out there for Cara Spencer than there is for Tishaura Jones.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that we should be noting about these numbers, especially given the way approval voting works?
We don't know how people used approval voting. Approval voting allows St. Louis voters who cast their ballots in the primary to choose however many candidates they want to support. And we don't know if people decided to just vote for the one candidate that they support, or if they supported a candidate and the one that they thought would be easier to beat in the general election, or if they used approval voting in which the way it has been promoted and is wanted to be used by its supporters, which is to say you back the candidates that you think will do a good job and then let them fight it out for the general election.
Mm-hmm. Now, the 2 candidates that are advancing to April 8th's race for comptroller are Donna Barringer and incumbent Darlene Green. And the comptroller, as a reminder, is the city position that's responsible for financial and accounting functions. Were the results here much of a surprise, Rachel?
Again, the outcome of who is advancing, no, not a surprise. I would have been absolutely shocked if Darlene Green had not gotten the chance to go through to the general election. And I thought Donna Barringer was in a stronger position than the third candidate, Celeste Metcalf, to be her direct challenger. We'll see how Green does in what is going to be a very competitive election, however. She has not really had a challenger like Donna Barringer, who has some financial metal to her and is willing to do the work to come in and campaign.
Right. Now, the 2 aldermanic primaries saw incumbents win in both wards. Ward 3's Shane Cohn, who's been alderman for 5 terms, will face Dallas Adams in April, and Ward 11's Laura Keyes, a longtime Democratic committee woman for former 21st Ward, will be facing Rebecca McLeod. How close were these contests, Rachel?
They're not particularly close. I mean, you have to keep in mind that there are so few people voting in these ward elections. I think maybe 1,300 people cast ballots in the 11th Ward primary, that the numbers are going to skew very heavily. 2, 3, 4, 5, 11, 15 votes is a much larger margin. Those were not the margins, to be clear, but a 300 vote margin, which is about what it was between like first and second and third in all these races, just looks very different when there are so few voters casting ballots.
Now, turnout for yesterday's primary election was at about 18%. Rachel, what does that say to you about how St. Louis citizens are feeling about the candidates and how they're feeling about issues?
I took it as a pox on all your houses turnout.
Okay.
There is certainly enthusiasm. There are people who are enthusiastic for or happy about the candidate of their choice. And I think the numbers show that Cara Spencer has more enthusiastic supporters right now than Tishaura Jones. But there's a lot of people, more than 80%, who just did not come out and vote, who for whatever reason decided this is not something I'm going to worry about. Either they just did not like any of the candidates or did not believe that the candidates can address what they see as being their main issues as a resident of the city of St. Louis.
The weather yesterday was not great.
Not great, but I mean, think about the November election for example, where you had torrential severe storms, flooding, power outages at polling places. There was none of that. No, the weather wasn't great early on, but, I'm not a city resident, but when I went out and took my dog for a walk about I think it was about 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Sure.
Yes, it was threatening to rain, but it didn't look torrential. And I went out for a run about an hour later and the weather was fine. So no, it wasn't the best. And certainly if you're not super enthusiastic, that might tamp down enthusiasm even further. But I don't know that you can say, the weather is distinctly to blame for that low turnout. It was certainly perhaps a contributing factor.
What is it that you'll be looking for, Rachel, in these next few weeks before the April 8th election?
So there's 35 days. It's an extremely compressed time frame. I'm going to be curious to see if the progressive groups get off the sidelines and begin to work for Tishaura Jones. Cara Spencer, I think, has left herself vulnerable to a line of attack that she is the candidate of the millionaires and the billionaires, which is antithetical to how progressives think politics should work, that it should be for all people. Do they get out and say, I may not like Tishaura Jones, but I don't like Cara, and I will work for her to lose? Do alder people get off the sidelines and begin to work in their wards? Will Cara's PAC start to spend money? They're sitting on more than $330,000. That's a lot of money in a local race. And then where that money is spent. Is it on TV? Is it on mailings? How that money is spent. Is Cara able to close the gap in North Side wards? When Tishaura Jones won in 2021, she wiped the floor with Cara in those North Side wards. And will Cara's margin in Southwest and some of Southeast St. Louis overcome Jones's natural advantage in the North Side? And then, like I mentioned, I will be curious to see how Darlene Green handles a real election against a candidate who, like I said, can raise some money and is willing to go out and hustle.
So activity and activation. We'll check in with you as you're going toward this 30-some days. Rachel Lippmann is STLPR's city politics, public safety, and courts reporter. Rachel, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's always good to be on, Elaine.
This episode was produced by Elaine Shaw and by our executive producer, Alex Hoyer.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr. This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.